from Of Ends and Beginnings by Archmagister Kalen Vore. The old world ended in fire fusion detonations that carved continents into glass, plasma storms that boiled oceans into steam. But fire was merely the prelude. The true cataclysm began when billions of human minds screamed in unison. Billions of deaths compressed into an instance of nuclear holocaust created a psychic shockwave that tore holes in reality itself. The nuclear war didn't create the ley lines, it charged them. Population centers became a screaming wound in space-time. Billions of terrified minds poured collective psychic energy into the planet's electromagnetic field. That energy followed fault lines, tectonic boundaries, ancient sacred sites, burning channels through dimensional barriers like acid through flesh, intersections of psychic death rivers converging into maelstroms of raw magical potential. The ley line network we navigate today, the currents practitioners tap for spellcasting, are scars. Psychic scar tissue formed when a billion deaths simultaneously traumatized reality itself. We built our civilization atop humanity's grave. Their voices never stopped. We simply learned to call the screaming power.
Chapter 2. Blood and Ley Lines. The chemical calm dissolved with consciousness. Drake's eyes opened to grey light filtering through pollution haze, but his mouth still tasted like crystallized terror from whatever poor soul had filled that vial. The ceiling above his mattress had a crack shaped like a grasping hand. He'd stared at it enough times to know every finger. The pounding started. Not his skull, the door. He pushed himself upright. Yesterday's clothes clung to him, sweat damp and wrinkled. His mouth tasted like copper, like the crucible.
Drake!
Mira's voice carried through the reinforced steel. Urgent. He stood. The room tilted, then settled. His hands held steady. Too steady. The tremor he lived with for weeks had vanished, surgically removed by crystallized agony in a vial. He flexed his fingers. They moved with precision that belonged to someone else. The locked cabinet door hung ajar where he'd forgotten to secure it. Empty crystalline vials caught the weak morning light, their rainbow seals still glowing faintly. Drake kicked the cabinet shut and crossed to the door in 3 steps. Mira pushed past him the moment the lock disengaged. Her AR glasses sat crooked on her forehead. Dark circles shadowed her eyes.
2 more.
Drake's breath caught, his throat constricted.
Almost simultaneous, maybe 30 minutes apart at most.
She pulled her tablet from her jacket pocket, fingers dancing across the screen.
Enchanter Dorian Glass, magical pawn shop in the Mixed District. Sorceress, Yella Thane, apartment building near the Sanctum. Same pattern carved into their chests. Same psychic residue profile you flagged at Vale's scene. Captain wants you at the precinct, now.
Mira's voice dropped.
You need to change clothes, maybe shower, definitely coffee.
He looked down at himself. The leather coat draped over his chair showed yesterday's rain stains. His shirt collar carried sweat marks. 5 murders demanded a detective who looked functional. The bathroom mirror's crack bisected his reflection, hollow cheeks. Amber residue still clinging to his irises from the overfeeding. He splashed cold water on his face, changed into cleaner clothes, ran fingers through his hair without bothering to check the result. When he emerged, she handed him a thermal coffee container without comment. The morning streets carried the usual tension, protests gathering in City Hall Plaza, security forces establishing checkpoints, vendors hawking breakfast from carts while keeping one eye on the nearest escape route. A city on edge while pretending routine still mattered. Precinct 7 rose ahead. All brutalist angles and scorch marks, a concrete fist punching upward. The building had survived 2 riots and a magical assault in the past year. Scorch marks on the southern wall testified to violence that hadn't quite breached the defenses. Yet, Drake followed Mira through security checkpoints. Officers watched him pass, some nodded, others looked away. Captain Harlan's office occupied the 3rd floor, reinforced glass on 3 sides. Through those walls, Drake saw her uniform pressed despite the early hour, ice blue cybernetic eye tracking their approach. A second figure sat across from her desk. Expensive suit. Precise grooming. Digital tablet held like a weapon. Internal Affairs Agent Corso. Mira's hand touched Drake's arm briefly. Grounding gesture. They entered together.
Detective Drake.
Corso's voice carried bureaucratic precision. He didn't stand.
Your presence allows us to formalize this discussion.
Harlan's prosthetic hand flexed against the desk edge. Her jaw set in the expression that meant she was controlling fury through sheer will.
Agent Corso was just explaining why my lead investigator should be removed from the most critical case this precinct has handled in 5 years.
Her natural eye focused on Drake while the cybernetic one continued its independent scan.
Perhaps you'd like to hear his reasoning directly.
Corso tapped his tablet. Data projected into the air between them, a holographic file marked with Drake's badge number and a red header indicating disciplinary review.
Detective Drake has violated department policy regarding controlled substance use 17 times in the past 6 months. His required psychic energy feeding has escalated to dependency on illegal high-potency vials purchased through black market sources.
Corso's fingers scrolled through documented incidents.
He's compromised evidence chains by contaminating crime scenes with his own psychic signature. He maintains known contact with convicted felons and information brokers. And despite these violations, Captain Harlan has repeatedly declined to enforce standard accountability measures.
The words cut, precise, and devastating. Drake said nothing. His hands stayed steady. Artificial calm holding against the storm. Mirror shifted left, narrowing the angle between Drake and Corso's scrutiny.
Detective Drake also maintains a 93% case clearance rate. He's identified perpetrators in situations where conventional investigation failed. He tracked the Rift Scar incursion last year when every other psychic in the department got lost in ambient interference.
Past performance doesn't excuse present liability.
Corso's attention remained fixed on his tablet, as though Drake existed only as data points rather than person.
This investigation requires absolute integrity. The magical community is terrified. Political factions are exploiting these murders to destabilize the government. We cannot afford a compromised officer whose nature makes him the perfect suspect.
That last sentence hung in the air. Drake's tracking sense flared. Corso wasn't wrong. From outside perspective, a soul eater addicted to feeding on magic users fit the killer's profile too well. Methodical murders, no physical struggle at most scenes, victims drained of psychic energy. The evidence could point directly at him if someone wanted it to. Harlan stood. Her prosthetic hand stopped flexing.
Agent Corso, I appreciate internal affairs concerns. They're noted and logged.
Her voice dropped to dangerous quiet.
Detective Drake remains lead investigator. He answers to me, and I answer to the chief. Unless you'd like to escalate this conversation to that level right now, this discussion is concluded.
Corso's expression remained professionally neutral, but his tablet lowered.
I will be filing my formal objection for the record.
Noted.
When this investigation fails, when Detective Drake's compromised condition causes critical errors, the responsibility falls on your judgment, Captain.
I'm aware of my responsibilities.
Harlan's cybernetic eye fixed on Corso with unsettling intensity.
Are you aware of yours? Because right now, 5 citizens are dead, the killer is still active, and you're creating obstacles rather than solutions.
Corso stood, straightening his suit.
I'm protecting this department's integrity.
He glanced at Drake for the first time, making direct eye contact.
I hope your faith in Detective Drake proves justified, Captain, for everyone's sake.
He left without waiting for dismissal. The door closed. Harlan dropped into her chair, her prosthetic hand resuming its rhythmic flexing.
He's not wrong.
Drake's voice came out rough. About which part?
All of it.
She leaned forward, elbows on the desk.
You're a liability. You're compromised. You're one bad choice away from losing your badge and possibly facing criminal charges.
Her natural eye met his, while the cybernetic one analyzed his biometric responses.
And you're also my best chance at solving this before the city tears itself apart.
She pulled up a holographic display. 5 crime scene markers glowed red across the city map.
2 near-simultaneous murders, Drake. That's escalation. That's confidence. The killer is moving faster and we're falling behind.
Her prosthetic hand pointed at the newest markers.
I'm assigning you as lead investigator. Saldez remains your partner. You get full access to forensic support, surveillance systems, and interdepartmental cooperation.
She stood again, military bearing reasserting itself.
This is your last chance, not as threat as fact. Clear these murders, identify the killer, prevent the next death, or lose everything.
Harlan's ultimatum landed without weight. Drake's shoulders loosened, the knot in his chest unwound. Drake nodded. Understood.
Good. Now get to those crime scenes before they're compromised further. I want your preliminary psychic readings within 3 hours.
Outside the office, the bullpen's ambient noise washed over them. Mira walked slightly ahead, her AR glasses back in place, projecting data overlays only she could see.
First scene is 6 blocks northwest. Dorian Glass's shop.
Drake pulled a square of paper from his coat pocket. Blue. He folded while walking, muscle memory guiding his fingers through familiar creases. The crane emerged more symmetrical than yesterday, artificial steadiness making the work precise. He hated how good it looked. They took Mira's vehicle, a battered patrol unit she'd modified with additional scanning equipment and reinforced armor plating. The streets grew narrower as they entered the mixed district, where magical shops pressed against tech repair stalls, and neither community trusted the other enough to leave their boundaries undefended. Dorian Glass's shop occupied a corner storefront. Crime scene tape cordoned the entrance. 2 uniforms stood guard, their expressions carrying the exhausted wariness of officers who'd worked through the night. Mira flashed her badge. They ducked under the tape. Inside, the shop smelled like blood and old leather. Shelves crammed with enchanted artifacts lined every wall. Weapons, talismans, pre-Rifts technology enhanced with magical augmentation. An elaborate display case had been knocked over, scattering inventory across the floor. Dorian Glass's body lay in the central floor space. Drake's tracking sense activated before conscious thought. Amber light flared behind his eyes. The world shifted into layered spectrums. The ley line intersection manifested as visible energy currents converging beneath the corpse. 5 distinct flows of magical force meeting at precise angles, creating a nexus point that shimmered with rainbow iridescence. The shop's position had been chosen specifically for this convergence. Drake could taste the accumulated power saturating the space. But the flow was wrong. Disrupted. Where the ley lines should pulse with rhythmic energy, they stuttered and frayed like damaged nerves. He knelt beside the body. Elderly man, ritual robes soaked with blood. An ornate pocket watch lay beside his hand, still ticking. Dwarven work, pre-Rift's gold. His fingers had reached for it as he died. The chest wounds formed the pattern he'd seen before, 3 intersecting lines carved with surgical precision. Drake breathed in the psychic residue. It flooded his senses. Copper, yes, but underneath. That familiar signature. Methodical, calm. Purpose without doubt or hesitation. The taste coated his tongue, thick enough to drink. His hands started shaking, not withdrawal. Recognition. He'd encountered this signature before. In training exercises. In casual meetings. In the comfortable presence of mentorship. It tasted like Marcus, but wrong. Drake forced himself to stand, forced the amber glow to fade from his vision. His breath came faster than it should.
You getting something?
Mira's scanner chirped as it mapped residue patterns invisible to normal sight. Same killer. Same signature. His voice sounded distant. Murder happened at the ley line convergence point. The psychic energy disruption affects the flow through the entire intersection. Mira's fingers danced across her interface.
Mapping it. The ley line damage is creating cascade effects downstream. Dr. Thornridge is going to want full readings.
Drake pulled out another square of paper. Red this time. His fingers fumbled the first fold. The trembling had started properly now, artificial steadiness wearing thin. He made himself complete the crane wings, uneven, neck bent at wrong angles.
Second scene?
Yeah. Mira saved her data and headed for the door.
Yella Thane's apartment, 10 minutes northeast.
They drove in silence. Drake stared at the broken red crane in his palm. The paranoia from the Crucible sighting gnawed at his thoughts. Marcus meeting with Sci-Fi at 4 a.m. The silver pendant at Marcus's throat. Unfamiliar. Drake had known his mentor 15 years, catalogued every scar, every quirk, every piece of gear. That pendant was new. But the addiction distorted judgment. He knew that. High-potency vials created paranoid patterns where none existed. He couldn't trust perceptions formed during chemically induced states. Could he? Yella Thane's building rose in the magical district, reinforced structure with ward-etched walls and defensive enchantments, visible as shimmer in the air. The second-floor apartment showed signs of forced entry. The doorframe's protective wards had been shattered, crystalline fragments glittering on the hallway floor. Inside, the apartment told a story of desperate struggle. Furniture overturned. Walls scorched from combat magic. Defensive spell burns marking where Yella had fought back before being overwhelmed. The bedroom door hung from one hinge. The body lay beyond it. Yella Thane had died fighting. Her muscular frame showed defensive posture even in death. Scorch marks in the shape of protective wards scarred her forearms. Street mages' battle tattoos, earned through survival rather than academy training. The ritual chest wounds marked her like the others, but scorch marks on the walls testified to the battle that preceded her murder. Drake's tracking sense flared again. The ley line intersection pulsed beneath the corpse, a secondary node less powerful than Dorian's shop, but still significant. The magical current ran through the bedroom floor like an underground river, and Yella's death had created another disruption in the flow. 2 murders, 2 ley line intersections, 5 total victims, all positioned at convergence points. The pattern crystallized in his mind. Mira. She looked up from documenting the defensive spell residue. We need to map all 5 murder sites onto ley line charts, now. Her expression shifted.
You think?
The killer isn't targeting individuals. They're targeting the ley line network itself. Every murder is disrupting magical infrastructure. Mira's fingers moved across her interface with increased urgency.
If you're right, this isn't serial murder, it's sabotage.
Drake stared at the intersection point where energy currents frayed and stuttered. The city's defense grid relied on ley line power. The wards protecting against dimensional incursion drew strength from this network. Destroying enough nodes would collapse the entire system, would leave the city vulnerable to invasion. We need Thornridge, and we need the complete ley line schematics. They left the crime scene to the forensic team and drove back to Precinct 7. Drake folded origami in the passenger seat, yellow, orange, purple, each crane emerging more twisted than the last as the artificial steadiness faded and withdrawal began its inevitable return. 5 hours since the last file, maybe 6. His skin crawled. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold air conditioning. Dr. Cale Thornridge's laboratory occupied the precinct's basement, a hybrid space where technological analysis equipment existed alongside ritual circles and magical testing apparatus. The doctor himself stood at a holographic display, disheveled grey hair catching the projection's light.
Ah, Drake. Saldes.
He gestured, nearly knocking over a beaker.
I've been analysing the psychic residue samples from the first 3 murder scenes. Fascinating consistency. The signature suggests a single perpetrator with extensive training in both combat technique and magical theory. The precision of the chest wounds indicates either surgical background or practice.
Mira approached the display.
Doctor, we need the complete ley line chart for the city.
Overlay the murder site locations. Thornridge's eyes lit up behind his wire-rimmed glasses.
Oh my.
His fingers danced across the interface.
You've seen the pattern.
The holographic city map expanded, filling the laboratory's central space. Blue lines appeared, the ley line network flowing beneath the streets in geometric precision. 5 red markers materialized where victims had died. Every marker sat precisely on a ley line intersection point. The 3 of them stood in silence, staring at the floating evidence.
It's not murder.
Thornridge whispered.
It's murder, obviously, but the murder is methodology rather than objective. The actual goal is destroying the ley line network.
Mira's hands moved fast, pulling additional data layers.
The city's defense grid draws power from 43 primary ley line nodes. 5 of these nodes are now disrupted. If the killer maintains this pace and continues targeting intersection points,
the entire ward system collapses. Drake's voice came out flat. The barriers protecting against dimensional incursion fail. The city becomes vulnerable to invasion. Thornridge adjusted his glasses.
The timing is remarkable, almost orchestrated, as though someone possesses intimate knowledge of both the magical infrastructure and the strategic vulnerabilities.
Marcus had security clearance for the city's defense grid, access to ward network schematics, knowledge of ley line intersections and magical infrastructure. Drake pushed the thought away. Paranoia. Chemical-induced suspicion. He couldn't trust his judgment when withdrawal clouded everything. But the pattern remained. Undeniable. Devastating.
we need to brief Captain Harlan.
Mira saved the holographic map to her tablet, and we need to identify which ley line nodes are most vulnerable to the next attack. They took the stairs back to the 3rd floor. Drake's legs felt disconnected from his body. 7 hours now, maybe 8. The craving had teeth. Harlan listened to their presentation without interruption. When Mira finished, the captain's prosthetic hand had stopped its rhythmic flexing, locked in a white-knuckled grip on the desk edge.
You're certain?
The evidence is clear.
Thornridge pulled up the holographic map again. 5 murders, 5 ley line disruptions. The pattern suggests systematic destruction of magical infrastructure. Harlan stood.
Then this isn't law enforcement jurisdiction anymore. This is domestic terrorism.
She activated her comm system.
I'm briefing the mayor and General Vaux. Drake, you stay on as head investigator, but I'm assigning military liaison support.
Captain.
Not negotiable.
Her ice-blue cybernetic eye fixed on him.
Civilian casualties are escalating, the defense grid is compromised, and political factions are using these murders to justify violence. Every agency with jurisdiction is now involved, whether we like it or not.
Drake's comm unit chirped. Incoming message flagged urgent. A summons from Archmagister Celine Vaux. Harlan saw his expression. The Maids' Council wants to see me, now.
Of course they do. Their people are being systematically murdered.
She nodded.
Go, take Saldes, and Drake, be diplomatic. We need the magical community's cooperation, not their opposition.
The sanctum rose ahead, 15 stories of dimensional stone that bent light wrong. Drake counted 7 windows on the south face. When he blinked, there were 12. They entered through gates etched with defensive enchantments. The interior defied exterior dimensions. Corridors stretching farther than the building's footprint should allow, rooms occupying impossible spaces. Mira's AR glasses flickered.
Tech interference. The wards are disrupting my equipment.
An escort waited in the entrance hall. Court mage in formal robes who regarded Drake with undisguised distrust. Follow. They climbed through disorienting spaces. Stairs appeared where none had existed moments before. Gravity felt wrong. The air hummed subsonic. Drake's sinuses ached from ambient power saturation. The astronomy tower occupied the sanctum's peak. They emerged into a circular chamber with open ceiling despite the afternoon hour. Massive pre-rifts telescope dominated one wall. Star charts covered the others, constellations shifting positions as Drake watched. Archmagister Celine Vaux stood at the telescope, her silver eyes reflecting starlight that shouldn't exist in daylight. She turned to face them. Drake had met Vaux twice before, formal briefings where he'd stayed in background while Captain Harlan handled political negotiations. But seeing her here, in her domain, surrounded by concentrated magical power, was different. The ritual tattoos on her skin pulsed violet. Her silver-white hair seemed to move in wind that didn't exist. She radiated authority that made even breathing feel like permission granted rather than right assumed.
Detective Drake.
Her voice carried harmonic resonance.
You've discovered the pattern.
Not a question. Yes, Archmagister.
5 of my people dead. And you, a soul eater, stand before me. Tell me why I shouldn't have you executed where you stand.
The floor dropped. Drake's hands began their familiar tremor. Sweat beaded on his upper lip. He tasted salt. Vaux's silver eyes fractured into 3 overlapping images before his vision steadied. Mira positioned herself forward.
Archmagister, Detective Drake has been investigating these murders since the first victim. His tracking abilities identified the perpetrator's psychic signature. His analysis revealed the ley line pattern. Without his work, we'd still be treating these as random killings. His work, or his intimate knowledge of his own methodology.
Vaux descended from the telescope platform. Each step deliberate, calculated.
Consider the evidence from my perspective, Officer Saldes. A creature that requires magical energy for sustenance. An addict desperate for more potent sources. Murders that drain victims of their psychic power. And all of this occurring during a period when my people already face prejudice and scapegoating.
Drake's hands shook. He shoved them into his coat pockets before the trembling became obvious. His voice cracked. Didn't kill them.
Words cost nothing, Detective.
Vaux stood 5 feet away now, her presence overwhelming.
Your nature as Soul Eater makes you a suspect. Your addiction makes you desperate. Your access to investigative information makes you capable of avoiding detection. Am I wrong?
He had no proof. No alibi for most of the murder times. His addiction compromised his credibility. Everything Corso had said, everything Harlan feared, everything Drake knew about himself. The truth was all he had. I can't prove my innocence. I can only tell you what I taste at the scenes. His tracking sense flared despite the withdrawal. The killer's signature is calm, methodical, no rage, no pleasure, no hunger, just purpose, executing a plan with mechanical precision. He met her silver eyes, forcing himself not to look away. When I feed, I'm not calm, desperate, ashamed, chasing the high that makes me forget what I've become. The signatures don't match, emotional states don't match. Vor's silver eyes flared violet. Pressure built in Drake's skull. She was reading him, peeling back layers he usually kept locked. His addiction lay bare, his shame, his gnawing fear that he was exactly what she accused him of being. The pressure released.
You speak honestly about your addiction.
Lying about it hasn't helped.
No,
Something in her voice softened fractionally.
lies rarely do.
She gestured, and a chair materialized from thin air, magically constructed furniture responding to her will.
Sit, detective, before you collapse.
Drake's legs went liquid. He sank into the chair before they could give out. Vor remained standing.
I choose to believe you, Drake. Not because the evidence exonerates you, but because my commitment to justice requires investigation rather than assumption. And because I recognize in you the particular exhaustion of those fighting their own nature.
Her silver eyes focused on something beyond the visible.
My conservative council members demand your head. They would call your arrest justice. But I need a competent investigator more than I need a convenient scapegoat. Don't make me regret choosing competence. However, Vor continued, belief is not endorsement. The Mage Council demands accountability. I'm assigning an observer to monitor your investigation. You will provide daily updates on your progress. Any evidence of misconduct, any hint of deception, and my faith becomes irrelevant.
Drake nodded. I accept those terms.
Good.
Vor walked to the window overlooking the city.
These murders are destroying my community, detective. Not just physically, though the deaths are horror enough. They're destroying trust. They're proving to conservatives like Magister Vale that cooperation with other factions is suicide. They're radicalizing young mages who see diplomacy as weakness.
She turned back to face him.
Stop this killer, or everything we've built over 15 years turns to ash.
The dismissal was clear. Drake stood, though standing required effort. Mira guided him toward the exit.
Detective?
He looked back.
Feed before you collapse. I need you functional, not martyred.
Vor's expression remained neutral.
The battle between survival and ethics is one you cannot win by ignoring physical reality.
Outside the sanctum, the afternoon air tasted like freedom. Drake leaned against the patrol vehicle, breathing hard.
She's right.
Mira said.
When's the last time you ate?
She held up the vendor wrapper.
Real food?
He couldn't remember. We need to map the next probable target locations. If the killer follows the ley line pattern.
Drake.
And we need witness interviews. Someone must have seen.
Drake.
Mira's hand touched his arm.
Food, now, or I'm taking you to medical.
They found a street vendor 3 blocks from the sanctum. Drake forced down something that might have been meat wrapped in something that resembled bread. It tasted like ash. His body wanted energy, not calories. 9 hours since the last file. The withdrawal was approaching critical threshold. Mira's comm unit chirped. Her expression changed as she read the incoming data.
Commander Crost is staging a demonstration at City Hall Plaza. Government incompetence enables murder. The protest started 20 minutes ago, and it's already at 500 people.
Drake watched the broken crane in his palm. Orange, twisted wings, bent neck. Let's go. City Hall Plaza occupied the geographic and political center of the city. Pre-Rifts monuments stood alongside modern holographic displays. The square could hold 5,000 when filled to capacity. Today it held perhaps 600 rebels wearing broken chain insignia, sympathizers carrying protest signs, curious citizens observing from safe distances, and news drones circling overhead, insect precise, their lenses catching protest light. Commander Zane Crost stood on a makeshift platform. Even from 3 blocks away, his voice carried naturally.
5 citizens dead, 5 murders unsolved, and what does our coalition government offer? Promises, investigations, the same empty words they've given us for years while corruption festers and innocent people die.
The crowd roared approval. Drake and Mira stopped at the plaza's edge watching. Security forces maintained perimeter positions, but they looked nervous, outnumbered. One wrong move, and this demonstration became riot.
The government cannot protect you.
Crost's voice resonated with practiced cadence.
They cannot catch this killer. They cannot prevent the next murder, because the system itself is broken, rotten, maintained by those who profit from your suffering.
More cheers. Counter-protesters across the plaza shouted opposition. The space between the groups crackled with potential violence. Crost was using the murders as recruitment tool, political theater transforming tragedy into revolution's fuel.
We need to leave.
Mira's hand touched his elbow.
Security's getting twitchy and we're cops in plainclothes in an anti-government crowd.
She was right. But Drake couldn't stop watching Crost. The rebel leader commanded attention through sheer force of presence. His words carried conviction. His critique of systemic corruption wasn't wrong, even if his violent solutions were. How long until rhetoric became action? How long until protest became civil war? They retreated from the plaza, returned to the patrol vehicle, drove back toward Precinct 7 through streets that felt wrong, tense, waiting.
The city's tearing itself apart.
Mira said.
These martyrs are the excuse everyone's been waiting for to stop pretending cooperation is possible.
Drake folded another crane, purple. The trembling made the creases uneven. His skin crawled. Cold sweat drenched his shirt collar. 11 hours, maybe 12. Back at the precinct, Thornridge had updated the ley line analysis. The holographic map now showed predicted target locations, ley line nodes that matched the pattern of previous murders. The holographic city hung in the lab's darkness. Blue ley lines intersected like neural pathways. 5 red markers glowed where victims had died. Drake's tracking sense flared. The pattern burned itself into his vision, not random, geometric, deliberate. His finger traced the arc from one murder to the next. There. He pointed at 3 unmarked intersections. Here, here, and here. That's where they'll hit next. Mira studied the projections.
Can we protect all 3 simultaneously?
With military support and council cooperation, yes.
Thornridge adjusted his glasses.
But resources are stretched thin. We'd be gambling on the accuracy of my pattern analysis.
Drake stared at the projected targets. The Academy educated 800 students. The Rift Scar Station housed essential defense personnel. The ceremonial chamber served as governmental and magical nexus. Any of them represented catastrophic loss if the killer struck. We need to brief Harlan, and General Vol, and Vor. He stood, though standing made his vision blur. Set up protective details at all 3 locations.
Drake.
I know. His voice came out sharper than intended. But people are dying. The defense grid is failing. We don't have time for me to be compromised. Mira's expression showed concern and frustration in equal measure.
I'm not asking you to be invulnerable. I'm asking you to be functional. And right now, you're barely standing.
She was right. He knew she was right. But feeding meant purchasing illegal vials from Sci-Fi. Meant becoming the predator everyone feared. Meant proving Corso correct. His comm unit chirped again. Captain Harlan requesting immediate return to her office. They climbed the stairs. Drake's legs felt disconnected. Each step required conscious effort. Harlan waited in her office with General Vole, a pragmatic soldier in his late 50s who regarded Drake with the particular distrust military officers reserved for psychics.
General Vole has been briefed on the ley line pattern.
Harlan gestured at the holographic map now displayed in her office.
He's assigning military protection details to the predicted target locations.
Vole's voice carried command authority.
I'm also accelerating the invasion defense preparations. If these murders are coordinated with an external attack, we need to assume the timeline has been compressed.
He looked directly at Drake.
How confident are you in the pattern analysis?
Drake forced his voice steady, confident enough to stake lies on it.
Good, because that's exactly what we're doing.
Vol manipulated the holographic display.
I'm positioning rapid response teams at all 3 locations, but understand, these deployments pull resources from other defensive positions. If the pattern is wrong, or if this is a feint, we've compromised our overall readiness.
The weight of that responsibility pressed down like physical force. Understood, General. Vol nodded.
Then we're committed. Captain Harlan, keep me updated on investigative developments.
He left. The office felt larger without his presence. Harlan's prosthetic hand resumed its flexing rhythm.
Drake, You look like death.
Functional death.
That's not reassurance.
She leaned back in her chair.
Vore called me after your meeting, said you were honest about your condition. Appreciated that.
Her ice-blue cybernetic eye fixed on him.
She also said you need to feed before you become useless. I'm officially ordering you to take care of your metabolic requirements. I don't care how. Just do it and get back here ready to work.
The permission felt like condemnation. Captain!
Dismissed.
Outside the office, Mira walked slightly ahead. Her shoulders held tension. She didn't voice. They reached the precinct's side exit before she spoke.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know what you need. You know the costs.
She turned to face him, AR glasses reflecting his own haggard expression.
But I'm not losing my partner because pride killed him. Feed. Rest if you can. Come back when you're able to work.
She left him standing there. Drake pulled out another square of paper. Green. His hands shook so badly the first fold tore. The city streets felt hostile as he walked. Not dangerous, but hostile. Like the urban landscape itself rejected his presence. Protesters gathered on corners. Security forces established checkpoints. Holographic news feeds replayed Crost's demonstration speech. Drake descended through maintenance hatches. 3 levels down, the air grew warmer. Sound filtered up, the roar of arena combat, the multilingual haggling of dealers. Neon light painted everything garish. Drake skirted the crowd, found Cypher's alcove. He lounged against the far wall, bioluminescent tattoos pulsing across his shaved scalp. His eyes fixed on him the moment he entered.
Ah, the desperate detective returns.
Cypher's smile widened.
You smell of withdrawal and political pressure. Fascinating combination. Also, I hear you've discovered the ley line pattern. Congratulations on your investigative competence.
Drake said nothing, waited.
Straight to business, then. I approve efficiency.
Cypher produced a crystalline vial. The seal glowed crimson, high potency.
Standard price. Though I wonder if you've considered the ironic poetry. You investigate murders targeting magic users while feeding on the very energy that made them targets.
Just the vial.
Of course. Though I am curious about one thing. Have you identified your killer yet? Because someone with magical knowledge, access to defense schematics, someone methodical enough to plan systematic sabotage.
Cypher's crystalline eye swirled with colors.
That's a rather specific profile, yes?
Drake's hand closed around the vial. He transferred credits.
If you have information. I have curiosity. Different commodity entirely. Cypher waved dismissively. Solve your mystery, detective. As always, I'll pay well for exclusive knowledge.
Drake moved to the darker alcoves. Found a corner behind stacked crates where shadows swallowed the neon light. He broke the vial's seal. The energy surged through his system. Euphoria flooding his nerves, power amplifying his tracking sense to razor clarity. His hands steadied. The trembling stopped. The world sharpened into perfect focus. And he hated himself for how good it felt. The vial's contents carried psychic signatures of fear and pain. Someone's terror crystallized into consumable form. He'd drunk suffering to feel functional. He sat in the darkness behind the crates, letting the high stabilize. His thoughts cleared. The paranoia about markers receded to manageable background noise. The overwhelming exhaustion faded. This was the addiction. Not the physical dependency. The relief. The return to competence after hours of degrading withdrawal. The feeling of being himself again, even though this self was built on others' pain. He emerged from the alcove 20 minutes later. Steadier. Sharper. Compromised. Outside, evening air tasted different through enhanced senses. Drake pulled out his comm unit, thumb hovering over Marcus's contact, then put it away. Paranoia built patterns from static. Drug-induced suspicion. He'd investigate later, when his judgment wasn't compromised. Mira waited outside the crucible when Drake emerged. She leaned against the patrol vehicle, arms crossed, not checking her tablet. "How long you been here?" Drake asked.
Long enough.
She pushed off from the vehicle.
You steadier?
He looked at his hands. The trembling had stopped. "Yeah."
Good. Because we've got a serial killer and you're the only one who can track them.
She met his eyes.
I know what you're dealing with. I'm not asking you to be fixed. I'm asking you to work the case.
Drake pulled out a square of paper. Purple. Folded while his hands were steady. The crane emerged clean this time. Symmetrical wings, straight neck. Artificial competence. But maybe competence was competence regardless of source. Last chance, he said. Captain made that clear.
Then let's not waste it.
Drake nodded. He set the purple crane on the vehicle's hood. Okay, let's work.